Okay, hi everybody. It's week 5, and we are going to review just some basics of how to incorporate feedback from specifically your week 4 assignment into your week 5 assignment. So what we're going to go through is really just some basic how to incorporate feedback steps, and then we can talk about any specifics as they might relate to our course assignment. All right. So here we go. So the first thing that I would tell you, and I think I wrote this in the announcement, but I'm not positive, is to read all of the feedback. Don't go to the first one and then start addressing it and go to the second one and start addressing it, because you might find that by like number 6, I find something and say, oh, make sure you do this all the way through. And then you've already fixed like the first paragraph and now you got to go back again. So I would definitely read through all of the feedback before you start making any changes, to just kind of get a feel for what it says. And then you'll see in some of the next steps kind of where to go with that. If you don't understand something, please feel free to reach out. The best way to do that would probably be to copy my comment or just type the comment and email it to me so I can see what you're talking about and then respond back to you. All right, let's see, just trying to keep track of our time here. Okay, so organize the feedback. Categorizing the feedback. So most of the feedback right now is focusing on APA, grammar, the structure of it, the flow of the writing, the formatting. So if it's easier for your brain, and again, these are just suggestions, whatever doesn't work for you, just throw it out. But if it's easier for your brain to kind of organize by category, so that as you're going through, you kind of, whether it's highlighting in different colors, so you're visually seeing it, or noting with comments in your Word document, or however it makes sense for you. But categorizing often will help now and as a process when you get to, longer work down the road. Create a list or spreadsheet to track your changes. For this, I don't think it's necessary for a course assignment for you to do this. But what might be helpful for you is, if you're doing this in Word, to set your track changes, which I give you instructions on in week 5, because I want you to use track changes when you submit or when you revise the work and then submit the track changes. Or using the comments in Word is sometimes helpful as well. Like I said, I don't think you need to go create a whole spreadsheet of changes that you're making, but some way to kind of track what you're doing. If you're not familiar with track changes, there are some great videos on YouTube. You can give yourself a quick tutorial to maybe get the most out of using track changes. All right, prioritizing your revisions. Again, I realize you only have so much time in a week, and if there are some low-hanging fruit items that you can just knock off really quickly and get those out of the way and get them done, maybe that's, what you kind of do as you're leading in. Maybe you do all of your work on Saturday. So maybe between now and Saturday, you're kind of grabbing some of those low-hanging fruit things. If you know where your grade stands, and if, let's say, there's a lot of content that needs to be rewritten and you just don't have the time this week, then do all the other stuff that you can get done easily, and understand, look at the rubric and understand what that means for your grade. Of course, also knowing that in week 5, the individual rubric scores are going to be the same, but the weight of the overall assignment is less. It goes, in week 4, it was 10%, it's 6% in week 5, might be 4, but I think it's 6. I'll double check and make sure that I put that out there. But either way, if you are saying to yourself, I just don't have time to do that this week. I understand the feedback. I know what I need to do, but I can't do it right now for this assignment. Okay, I get it. Everybody has to prioritize. So do what you need to do. Just make sure that you know where it stands. All right. This tells you, I'm saying here, start with significant, but again, do what makes sense for your timing and your week. If you're sitting down in one chunk and you have that time, sometimes starting with the significant ones while you're fresh and getting started is helpful. All right, so plan your approach, break down the revision process into manageable tasks. It's kind of what I just said to you already, kind of figuring out how to approach the revisions, whether you're starting small items or hitting the large ones right up front, and then setting some deadlines. Again, we don't have that much time, so this is kind of a generic overall how to approach feedback, but today's Wednesday, so between tonight and Sunday night, you know, just in your mind, figuring out how you're going to attack these revisions. All right, revise and edit. So if you have the time, you want to make sure that you're addressing each piece of feedback, because this is good practice in general, but especially for the week 5 assignment. I am going to pull up your week 4 assignment with all of my comments and pull up your week 5 assignment right next to it. And I am going to go item by item and make sure, number 1, that you addressed each item, and number 2, how you addressed it. Now, again, I get it. If you don't have time to address all the items, then I'll just look at that one and make my decision on how to, review it at that point. But probably gonna look just the comment and the score are probably gonna look just like they did in week 4 if nothing changed. There might be a more significant decrease if nothing changed, but generally it'll be in the same general score. But if you do make those changes, I'm going to be able to tell what changed and then how did you change it. This one is especially important here because I'm not asking you to create a whole new assignment for week 5. Really, it should be taking week 4 and just incorporating the feedback. So like making the changes according to the feedback. Some of you have bigger changes to make than others. If you're in a position where you need to add content, again, that's going to be a little bit of a heavier lift, but don't just throw things in there. Try to keep it in the style of how you've already written and what is there so that you're not starting from scratch. This should be kind of a second draft, if you will, for those that need to add more content. All right, seek additional input. So this is, again, a general step where when you make revisions, it's always helpful to get someone else to read it. I'm not expecting you to go have an editor or a writing tutor for a course assignment. But if you have a friend, a spouse, a parent, a child who, has 15 extra minutes to look this over and just kind of catch anything that maybe your eyes aren't seeing, because I know I am my own worst editor. My work looks great every time I read it. So if you fall into that category, it may just be helpful to have somebody kind of look at it with fresh eyes. I had a student who defended last year, but, grown adult with a family, and would always pass his writing to his wife and his mother because 2 different generations, 2 different perspectives, and then come back to me and say, yeah, my mom had no idea what I was talking about. So I realized I needed more clarity here. And, my wife pointed this out and I did this. So again, sometimes it's just helpful to have some fresh eyes. Okay, review the changes. So once you make these changes, go through, read the work again, make sure that it makes sense. So this, I would say, some of the things you can do as a visual review, right? So maybe your in-text citations are an easy visual review. Your reference list citations, those might be easy to visually kind of look at. Are your volume numbers italicized, all that. But your content, read through it again and read it out loud. If you're looking for ways to kind of catch new things, take one time and read it out loud. It helps you to kind of pause and stop and be like, wait, did that make sense? Versus just, zooming through it in your mind because you've already read it a bunch of times. And then check for consistency and coherence. So again, I mentioned this in the announcement, but sometimes I flag something 18 times because that's the mode I'm in and I'm just going and like, oh, this again, this again, this again. And sometimes I mark it once and say, hey, look for this throughout. Regardless of how many times I mark it, there may be a few I didn't mark. So whatever your feedback is that you're looking at, take a look and make sure that throughout the rest of the document, your revisions are consistent to the feedback that was in one place. And this goes for things like, if I told you to indent a paragraph, well, make sure they're all indented. If you have to change your heading levels, make sure you don't just change the one at the top, make sure that they all cascade appropriately from the changed one at the top. In-text citation, let's say I noted it on one in-text citation for a particular article, and you have that same source cited 3 other times. Okay, well, make sure 3 other times are right, but also all the other in-text citations that aren't that specific source. So it's looking for things like that and just being really, comprehensive in your review. And then proofread. So any, remaining errors. And again, this is where you're just kind of finalizing, see if you see anything else, grammar, punctuation, formatting, all of that stuff, kind of those visual things. Submit and refresh. So you're going to submit your work, and then I debated on putting this one in because, again, it's coursework, but looking at the broad scheme of how to incorporate feedback, it's always good to think about the process you just went through and how you can do this again next time, or different or better, or maybe spend less time doing it next time if it takes too long, because you're going to be writing another literature review in this course. So kind of just thinking about, okay, how can I approach this again next time? So with that, I'm going to stop sharing for a minute and just ask the group that's on, does anybody have any questions? Okay, so nobody has any questions. So I just want to review very quickly the week 5 assignment requirements. So for this part, again, you're not creating anything new this week unless you need to add new content, but it's not a brand new assignment. Weeks 2, 3, 4, and 5 all should be connected together. So you're going to, again, you're doing this in Word. You're going to click on the review tab. I don't have a Word document open right now, but at the top you have your tabs. You're going to go to review, put on your track changes for everyone. And then in the drop-down menu, you're going to select all markup. These steps are important because they're going to show all of the track changes. However, which is what I need to see. However, when you're done, if you want to make sure that this reads normally, and it's hard to do that with all the track changes, just go back up to this drop-down menu and click, I think it says no markup. There's an option that it will give you where you don't see anything, or simple, where it will just put a line in the margin to show you something's changed over here, but it doesn't do it in the content. That might be an easier way for you to proofread and read at the end once it's done to see how it is. And I will also go back and forth with the settings when I'm looking at it. I want to see what you changed, and then I'll turn that off so I can kind of see the cohesive work compared to the week 4 work. So all of this is in here. And if you have, like I said, any questions, please feel free to reach out between now and then. Oh, Rob, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question about track changes. So up until this point, I've been working on the documents through Google Docs. If I move it into Word now, will from here on out, you'll be able to see the track changes, or no?
If you move your current work into Word and save it, and then turn on track changes, don't do it before, because then it's going to say all of it is a track change. So put it in and then, save it, then turn on track changes, and then anything you
make the revision.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Thanks. And actually, while I'm asking a question, one more. If we are pulling additional content, is it additional content from the articles that we already used, additional articles or combination?
Great question. So I don't want this to be a major lift for everybody where you're having to go track down new articles. If it makes sense for you to find another article or two to add some content and support, I'm fine with you adding articles, but I don't want to send you on some wild goose chase to go find all this new information. If you can do it with what you have, go for it. If you need and have the time to find something else, that's okay.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to stop recording. Here we go.